For the very first time, the Fed, Bank of New York, releasing details on portfolios acquired during the Bear Stearns and AIG rescues. For more on this unprecedented move towards transparency, we are joined by Vincent Reinhart, resident scholar at the American Enterprise Institute. Vincent has held various positions at the New York Fed during his 15-year career there. He joins us now from our D.C. bureau. Vince, always glad to have you with us. Of course, I mentioned transparency, albeit forced. I mean, Bloomberg had to sue the Fed to get this information. And you said in one of your more recent comments, you guarantee that the Fed agrees the road to someplace is pretty much paved with good intentions. What do you make of that?
So, yes, I think the Fed views Bloomberg as a nuisance here, that it acted at a time of distress in markets and distress with these two particular firms, Bear Stearns and AIG, and it would just like this all to be over. The problem is those decisions have long-lived consequences. They are holding assets that have long maturities, and they're going to be on their balance sheet for a very long time because there's no markets for them anymore.
Vince, here's an easy question for you. Given what we know now, given what's inside these maiden lane portfolios, can we pretend to be Monday morning quarterbacks and ask ourselves, did the Fed do the right thing taking this stuff on?
I think if you're not in the room at the time, it's almost impossible and unfair to make those calls, but I'm willing to be unfair. Remember that the lending to Bear Stearns is what set up the expectation that Lehman would be helped. And when they didn't act with Lehman, you had a lot of market turmoil that then induced AIG. Could events have been different? Yes. I think the answer is yes. Importantly, the issue is, shouldn't there be haircuts on the loans?
Vince,
so that some of the losses was shared.
What were some of the most surprising details in this report to you?
Oh, I view them as opportunities. The fact that the Federal Reserve Bank of New York is lending against a hotel in Jacksonville, Florida, means that in the future the Atlanta Fed could have their conferences there. It's the fact that there are a lot of individual loans. It's a 161-page document they released about mortgages against specific properties, lots of things that apparently were in the pipeline to securitization, but the firms didn't get a chance to do it before they were shuttered.
Vince, Deirdre mentioned the fact that we here at Bloomberg had to sue the Fed, and of course, Darrell Issa, the congressman, played a key role in getting this stuff released to the public as well. Ben Bernanke has committed himself to transparency. Can the Fed ever go back from this kind of view into what it holds?
No. All this is precedential. Remember, a basic question, though, is whether the Fed will be able to do this again in the future. The Senate financial reform legislation would take away some of the powers of the Fed to make some of these types of loans. So I think there's an open issue of whether the Fed will have the legal powers to do this in the future. But whatever they do, this raises the bar on how transparent the Fed's got to be. It'll be very difficult to, among other things, push off the next lawsuit if they didn't release the information. It also means that legislators are going to be much more likely to want to see this sort of information. No is not an acceptable answer.
Vince, though, big picture, does it really change our perception of what happened? And that is essentially mistakes were made. There were a lot of hasty decisions that had to be made, and the Fed was trying to avoid a huge market disruption or a bigger one than what we saw.
No, I think that's exactly right. To me, the most expensive words in this crisis were "before Asia opens." That again and again, policymakers, not just the Fed, including the Secretary of the Treasury,
yeah, we saw tons of decisions on Sundays.
Right, wanted to get things done because they believed that markets couldn't absorb uncertainty, and so they gave away some of their bargaining power, and so that's why you didn't see haircuts, why you saw these hasty decisions. That's a question that only the people in the foxholes can really answer after the fact. Should they, are some of the loans unfortunate? Yes.
Vincent, thank you so much for your time. Vincent Reinhart there joining us from the American Enterprise Institute.